1892, William Love created a design for a dream community. The plan was set to take place near Niagara Falls, New York. An area situated between two large freshwater lakes, Niagara Falls was seen as a location with an abundance of potential. The addition of a power canal, as suggested by Love, would generate power that was both economic and sustainable for the community. Love's plan quickly gained support and funding from locals, manufacturers, and even the New York governor. Unfortunately, just as everything began moving ahead, the United States was hit with a recession and all of Love's investors backed out. Additionally, Nikola Tesla's breakthroughs regarding the production and transmission of electricity further deterred people from investing in the Love Canal in terms of a source of power. The site was sold at a public auction in 1910, and by 1920 the site of the would-be dream community became a dumping ground. After buying the site in 1940, the Hooker Chemical Company began dumping large amounts of chlor-alkali compounds into the site. With no regulation for over 30 years, Hooker Chemical Company dumped an estimated 22,000 short tons of chemicals into the ground, including chemicals used to make solvents, perfumes, rubber, and synthetic resins. Soon thereafter, the site was sealed over with dirt and sold to the city, who began building a community on top of the contaminated ground. Those that now resided there remained completely unaware of the toxicity hidden right under their own homes, and over 20 years passed before the effects of the Hooker Company's negligent waste disposal were evident to the residents. Complaints about strong odors in yards, basements, and school grounds began to rise, and with each rainfall, more and more chemicals rose to the surface, and their effects continued to increase. When the grounds were tested, most chemicals were identified as carcinogens, or cancer-causing. Some of the harmful compounds found to be present were halogenated organics, chlorobenzenes, and dioxin. The toxins present were found to be genotoxins that are capable of mutagenesis. Such genotoxins have the potential to manipulate the genetic information within cells negatively, increasing cell proliferation and the incidence of tumors that are often cancerous. Increased cell proliferation occurs through mutations in one or more oncogenes. When oncogenes are unable to correctly function, the chances of inappropriate or cancerous cell proliferation increases. Additionally, chronic exposure of such chemicals increases the intensity of the effect that the carcinogenic chemicals have on individuals.
Now it's time to talk about the environmental impacts that this human disaster has caused. As expected, the dumping of tons of toxic waste in the land of the Love Canal had unfavorable impacts on the environment, the biggest of them all being the pollution of the groundwater. Once the contaminants started to leak, they combined with the groundwater below. The Environmental Protection Agency, also known as the EPA, tested the waters and found that there were 16 inorganic chemicals, 6 pesticides, 1 group of organic chemicals, and total dissolved solids, and thus advised that the groundwater must not be used for drinking or cooking purposes. One of the chemicals, called hexachlorobenzene, was presented in 130 times the concentration that is needed to cause cancer in humans. This water did not serve a significant risk to humans, since it was not likely to be consumed or ingested. However, it did pose negative impacts on the environment. The contamination of the fishery and the crops that may be irrigated through contaminated waters occurred, and as a result, trees and gardens began to die. Moreover, the animals that drank the water that was run off into the bodies of water nearby were also seen injured or with birth defects, and some had even died. To make matters worse, a brutal winter storm hit New York in the year of 1977 and piled up about 84 to 114 centimeters of snow. Let's watch this news broadcast which helps explain the situation.
A view from the air shows Buffalo still very much a city under siege. Much of the towing and plowing done yesterday undone by winds and snow overnight. With newly stalled cars blocking streets just cleared. City cleanup crews spending the day today just regaining ground. Most of the city efforts directed at emergency clearing and deliveries, opening streets for fuel oil deliveries and fire engines, getting food and medicine to people in need. The city has about 40 pieces of equipment on the streets. State and contract machinery also routed by city coordinators. Opening main arteries the next priority. The National Guard working today to finish projects in Orchard Park and on Grand Island, also involved in traffic control, clearing roads to and around 4 city hospitals on the agenda for a guard shift that begins work at 8 tonight.
Once all that snow melted in the spring of 1977, the water table rose significantly and elevated the buried toxins from the ground below. To help clean up the groundwater, the Hooker Chemical Company paid $120 million to install drainage pipes in order to capture and send it for treatment, as well as other cleanup costs that totaled up to $230 million. This treatment was clearly still not enough since in 2013 the New York Post reported that the Love Canal is still oozing with poison 35 years later.